So this is the chapel. There's a couple of different things about the chapel. It is running on a GLD 80 Allen Heath console, and you can also run it without using the console. There are two main screens. One is for lighting and one is for audio and video. So if we just hit the on button, it will say touch screen to begin. You touch the screen, and if you want to turn the system on for the video, there's a little sign for the projector right here where you hit system on. And once you've done that, you can select whatever source you need. There's a few different sources for video. At the back of the room, there's wall plates where you can put in an HDMI cable, a VGA cable, and basically what you do is you drag and you drop to choose your source, and then you'd also need to choose your audio source by clicking it on, and that's right here at the bottom. And again, just make sure whichever source you're choosing is the one that you're plugged into. So if you're on the stage and you're using the ones on stage left, you click this source. If you're at the rear, you'd click this one. There's a couple of different audio modes. Basically, if you're using a band and you have a big setup which you're using more than just for wireless mics, you change the mode by clicking in this top right hand corner. You can see which mode it's at. So right now it's in console mode, and we're going to want to switch it into a different mode. So by going back to the home page, there's a button here which says advanced audio. Click on the advanced audio button and you'll be able to choose which mode you want to be in. Standard mode, again, is just basically the wireless mics. It gives you the option still to use video and program audio, and then console is so you can do a full mix of the band. Right now we're in console mode. We could switch to standard mode, but let's go ahead and just do console mode and take a look at the console. The console is typically locked up. There is a key on our key rings. Those of you who will be running it will tell you which key that is. You will be running it off an iPad, which we'll get more into the network configuration in a second. You will turn it on the back here. You'll also grab the iPad, which is typically on charge. Every time you're done with it, you're going to want to put it back on charge too, so the next person doesn't have a dead iPad. The passcode for this iPad is 1234. It's really difficult, I know. Kind of wait for everything to warm up for a second. The app which you'll be using is called the GLD remote. It's in the bottom left hand corner. You'd click on it. It gives you the option to do demo or other. You're going to click other. Once the console's all up and ready, you're going to want to hit connect, and it will pop up with an IP address. This is something that you're actually going to want to pay attention to, because sometimes it might not be correct. To check that your console and that your iPad are on the same IP address, you're going to want to go to the setup button on your console. Down here in the bottom right, you hit setup, and then at the top here, there's a button which says config, and then there's a button which says network. Right there, you can check the IP address against your iPad. So right now it says 172.16.64.155, and it says the same thing in both places. So since I know that's okay, I'm going to go ahead and connect. It's going to say admin, and I'm going to click login. And at that point, I'm going to be logged into the iPad, so I can do all my functionality in console mode using the iPad. Let's just do a basic layout of the board, where most of the channels are coming in, things that you're going to want to look at for, and things that you might not be using but are good to know. First of all, this is how you mute and unmute all your channels using these buttons on each channel strip. There are multiple banks of channels. We have snake inputs, we have RF inputs, and we have wall panel inputs. We have the option to use 4 different monitors and subs, and basically our main left and right speakers, which are obviously still out there. So on each of these banks, you'll see the first 4 are your right, stage right 4 inputs. The next 4 are your stage left, 4 wall inputs, and then all of your snake inputs, which snake inputs right here are going up to 12. And then on bank C, you have all of your RF. So the first 4 are handhelds, and we use one of the handhelds as a podium mic. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 handhelds, and then 4 lavaliers. So in the case that I wanted to send something to my mains, what I would do is I would select my mains and hit this mix button, which is the blue button right here. And this is really important that you do this. You hit mix, and once you've hit mix, you can send whatever you want to it. So I'll turn my fader up. Say I want to send all 4 of these handhelds. If I'm in mix, I can send all 4 of them over, and then whenever I unmute my channels, they will work. And we can go ahead and check that. Okay, so checking the microphone, make sure you unmute it. You should see signal coming in on the signal path right here once you've turned it on. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute it. I've already sent it to my mains because I've hit the mix button and I've turned my fader up. Check, 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 1, 2. And I can hear it out there coming through the speakers. You're going to want to go back out there and check with the iPad here in a minute. This is just basic functionality. In the case that you're not getting your RF microphones, it's always good to check to see if the snake is working. There are 3 expanders. 1 is located local in the rack. You won't use that very often. 2 of them are located in a back room, which you can access from the chapel or access backstage. If you leave the console on and turn the microphones off and it's not receiving signal, sometimes the box will just kind of shut itself down. And to check that, you'll see that there's these link/error lights on these D snakes, and if for some reason they're not flashing, they're not working. If that is the case, you can just go ahead and pull this Ethernet cable out, give it a second to reset, and then put it back in. And then as soon as it starts flashing again, you should be ready to go and your mic should work. The top 8 are your RF microphones, so they're your 4 handhelds, wireless handhelds, and your 4 lavaliers. The ones on the bottom here are your snake inputs and your wall panel inputs, and then right here are your outputs. So your outputs are your monitors. You've got 4 monitors, your subs, and your main left and right. Also, you'll notice that the 2 power amps of the system are down here. They should shut themselves off when they're not in use, and then turn themselves back on when you turn the system on. It's always good to check just to make sure that you are getting your lights on them, and if for some reason they are turned off, you'll turn them off using these buttons right here. Okay, so we're just going to go over a basic layout of how we'd use the iPad. So once we've got into the app like I showed you, you have all the functionality of all the inputs that you see by scrolling left to right. You see your snake inputs, your wall inputs, and then you see your RF inputs, and then you also have your program audio right at the back end here. So let's test to see if we can get some audio using an iPod. Right here is the rear wall panel. When I showed you earlier, this is where you'd be plugging in your video using your VGA or your HDMI. There's also an audio in right here, so I'm going to just plug in an aux cable real quick and play something on my iPod. I actually already have something playing. And then using program, I can see it already coming in on my iPad. I'll unmute it, probably turn the fader down a little bit. There you go, turn it up. Cool, so that's working. Same thing with your handhelds. Now you're out here. You'd want to see if they're actually working, so you'd scroll to your handheld. This happens to be handheld 1, so I'll turn it on. check, 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 and it's unmuted. Usually it would be muted, you'd then unmute it, and then you'd make it the right level. So that works. Okay, so I talked earlier about the fact that you can plug in snake inputs and wall panel inputs. These are the stage right wall panel inputs. There are 4. There is also a connection so you can connect your snake, and a connection so you can connect basically your monitors. There's also the video connections for if you wanted to put video or program audio on this side, just like there was on the rear wall panel. And right here is where you'd be connecting up your monitors. Basically that's running to that snake input over here, and right here is where you'd be connecting all your snake microphone inputs, and that's also running to a snake input over there. So let's go ahead and just show you what would happen. Say you're setting up a cajon with an SM57, you'd get a mic stand and an SM57, plug an XLR cable into the back of it, and then plug that into input 1 of the snake. You'd go on your iPad and you'd be like looking for snake 1 input, you'd unmute it, and then you'd check it. So check, check, 1, 2, it's working. Like I said earlier, on the iPad it's a little bit different to the layout on the console. So if you hit this mix button, this will take you to all your outputs. You see how mix is highlighted in the bottom left there? Remember how I said you need to hit that blue button and then turn up your faders to send to an output? Same thing would happen if you've hooked monitors up out here and you wanted to use them real quick. You'd have to hit the mix button on the output page, then go to the inputs, and then if I wanted to turn the cajon that I just plugged in, or that microphone that I just plugged in, and send that, I'd turn it up from there. That's good. Okay, so whenever you're done and you're shutting down console mode, make sure that you plug the iPad back in and put it back where you found it. You're also going to want to go to the home page on your console and then turn it off from the back. So whenever I hit home right here, I can then hit power down. We say shut down the desk to continue, and you say yes. It's now safe to power off your GLD. Once it's safe, you hit the switch to turn it off, and then you lock up the crate. Again, you will know what the key is because I will tell you. And that's pretty much how you use console mode in the chapel. Okay, I showed you console mode. Now I'm going to show you standard mode. So once you shut the system down, you'd hit touchscreen to begin again. You'd hit advanced audio, and then you'd switch to standard mode. It will ask you to enter a passcode. That passcode is 1900. So enter, and then it gives you the option to choose basically all your RF inputs, and it gives you the option to use your stage left and stage right inputs, along with program volume for the audio that you've plugged in for either your video or your iPod. Just make sure that you select that source on the video screen, and I can show you where that is again. If you hit select source, down here at the bottom where it says primary audio select, you would choose most often real wall plate. Anyway, back to advanced audio, standard mode, 1900, enter. Let's go ahead and test to see if a handheld works. You'd want to make sure it's unmuted. Right there, you'd turn the microphone on and then check 1, 2, and it is working. And that's pretty much how you use standard mode. To turn the system off, again, you'll want to hit the system off button right here. Do you want to power down the system? And you say yes. And that will turn off all your video, all your audio, and then take you back to square one so you can really get